On today's show, we are joined by the talk show host, Manny Alicandro, and he joins us to share about how the truth is now beginning to be revealed as our American economy is beginning to reopen. On today's show, we share the truth about Epstein, Gates, vaccines, models, and a COVID-19 cure.
We have joining us in studio our new friend, Dr. Richard Bartlett. Hello, sir.
Debbie, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
I'm grateful you could be here, and I would love to just have you dive right in. Since I don't really know you, have you start with telling our listeners about your medical background.
Well, I've been practicing in Texas for 28 years. When Governor Perry started a new task force called the Health Disparities Task Force, he asked me to be on that task force. And the purpose was to give him advice so that all Texans can have access to quality health care. And that was a 2-year appointment. After 2 years, he asked me, would you stay on one more year? And so that happened year after year for a total of 7 years. And a lot of good things happened. But I also have been the medical expert for CBS affiliate in West Texas for over 20 years. And I do a regular weekly update on COVID on the Talk 550 AM talk radio in West Texas. And we've been doing that since the beginning of this drama.
Wow, okay.
And so I'm also an author and do medical missions in other countries. And so I've seen a lot of disaster all over the world. But I want to echo everything that you said in your first 5 minutes. I agree 100%. We already have an answer for this. And to put things in perspective, let's look around the world. In the country of Taiwan, there's over 25 million people. They're stacked on top of each other. If they did social distancing, they'd be out in the ocean floating around.
Yeah.
There's not enough room for them to do social distancing. But guess how many people have died to date during the whole pandemic in Taiwan? 7. As many people as you can stack in a minivan going down Central Expressway. And so the next time your viewers see a minivan, think, oh, that's how many people have died in a country of 24 million people. Now I'm going to tell you, yes, and I'm going to tell you why that's the situation. It's the situation also in Japan, 121 million people in Japan. They've had less than 1,000 people die during the whole pandemic. Singapore, only 12 people have died in the whole country during the whole pandemic. Iceland, well, that's not possible according to what we're being told in the mainstream media, but that's reality. Anyone can look it up. You can even look at the Johns Hopkins COVID website and you'll see those numbers. They're hidden in there, but I'm pointing them out because the people in Texas need to hear good news. In Dallas, they need to hear good news, and I have good news.
I'm sure you do. I'm blown away by those numbers. I gave up trying to write them down. But you're going to tell us somehow eventually where we get to this point that in these other countries,
they're doing what I'm doing, Debbie.
Okay.
They're doing what I'm doing, which is not hydroxychloroquine, although that works. And so what they're doing is an inhaled steroid. And so my silver bullet is inhaled budesonide. The brand name originally was Pulmicort, now it's generic. It's super cheap. It's about $200 for the total treatment if you pay cash. With insurance, many of my patients are not even having to pay for it. And you use a nebulizer machine. It's an asthma medicine. It's a respiratory anti-inflammatory for COVID, which is a respiratory inflammatory disease. And it works. 100% of my patients are alive. I've been treating this since March. And you use it for 5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes to do a breathing treatment. You plug it in the machine in the wall. You put the medicine that's pre-mixed, pre-measured from the pharmacy into the little reservoir. You push the on button and you breathe it during 5 minutes during the commercial.
You just have a mask on your face and breathe
it. You don't even have to have a mask. You can use a little mouthpiece that you hold in front of you. And you breathe it for 5 minutes. And let me tell you what I've heard from patients when I started using this. They tell me, I feel better during the first treatment. And so their chest pain goes away. Their shortness of breath goes away. Their fever breaks.
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Cutting Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm a dive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the C and Z up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1. Nation, I want to introduce you to a very special voice, to a guy who made a series of poor life choices and allowed me to be on his show. Manny, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Manny, I want to introduce our listeners to you. So what do our listeners need to Google or to search for on DuckDuckGo to find you and your program?
Absolutely. So I'm Manny Alicandro, and I have a show on New Right Network called Manny's Take. And it's a really interesting show. We just kind of lay it out. I have interesting guests, and we just get into some real detailed conversation. And we try to do no spin to the extent we can and just really get into issues that I feel that are important to talk about that aren't clearly talked about by the mainstream media.
Well, what I'm going to do on today's show is I'm going to see if we can demonstrate your mastery of the political landscape, if I can here. And so I'm going to mention a kind of a keyword, and I'm going to have you break down to me why I need to know this if I'm a listener. Okay, Jason, does that sound fair to you? Does that sound fair?
That sounds fair.
Okay, so here we go. Jeffrey Epstein. Manny, why do all of our listeners need to know who Jeffrey Epstein is, and why does it matter?
Wow. That really is a loaded question. I mean, we have like 3 hours to talk. I mean, he is no doubt one of the most interesting people that have committed crimes in the United States. Interesting from a dark, horrible, pornographic perspective, probably the most famous pedophile ever. This guy was just an evil, evil guy. And unfortunately, he left such a deep impression and hurt so many people and ran probably such a deep, deep ring of relationships with people, and this child pornography with his Orgy Island and his home in Palm Beach and in New York. And he knew so many famous people, so many successful people, Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, so many others. Alan Dershowitz was his lawyer, also his friend. And Epstein really got away with murder practically, and had a sweetheart deal with the U.S. attorney in Miami, who was formerly the Secretary of Labor, Acosta, and did not kill himself, let's say, in New York while he was awaiting trial the second time around. He was already a convicted pedophile, and looked like the feds had the goods on him. And surprisingly, the authorities in New York City, in a federal correction facility, Metropolitan Correction Facility, let Epstein kill himself, supposedly. And now the story doesn't end, because the story continues, because now Ghislaine Maxwell, who supposedly was his girlfriend, his friend, somebody who was involved in this level of pornography and really hurting all these young girls, sadly, was arrested. So now this whole thing is come back up again. Not surprising, there was a documentary recently. There is a documentary on Netflix,
Yep.
Which is kind of interesting. Also, isn't it kind of surprising to everybody how Berman, who was the U.S. attorney in the Southern District, who was fired by Trump, was fired a couple of weeks ago, and now all of a sudden, Ghislaine Maxwell is back in federal authorities' hands right now? I mean, isn't that amazing, the timing? I mean,
Amazing, the timing.
Could there be a connection?
You know, Audrey Strauss is the acting United States attorney for the Southern District of New York. And starting in 1994, she writes, she says, starting in 1994 up until at least 1997, this is her talking, she says, starting in 1994 until at least 1997, Ghislaine Maxwell, had a personal and professional relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. She goes on to say, Maxwell played a critical role in helping Epstein to identify, to befriend, and to groom minor victims for abuse. In some cases, Maxwell participated in the sexual abuse herself. Now, okay, so now that we know who Jeffrey Epstein is, why does it matter that Bill Gates was friends with Jeffrey Epstein and spent significant periods of time with Jeffrey Epstein?
it is amazing how many people Epstein knew and intimately knew and traveled on his plane, the Lolita Express, nicknamed the Lolita Express, and went to his own island, Orgy Island, nicknamed Orgy Island. So many people. And right now I'm actually in the process of completing a book on Jeffrey Epstein and his relationship with universities. So there was this aspect of Jeffrey Epstein. And what's interesting, today, Deutsche Bank paid $150 million in fines to the Division of Financial Services in New York. Why? Because they had Jeffrey Epstein's money. And it looked potentially like there was some money laundering going on there. Isn't that surprising?
Isn't that surprising?
It never came up. And these universities took Epstein's money, knowing who he was, as a registered sex offender, and really just what they did was they anonymized it. They just went out of their way to keep their relationships with Epstein. Why? Because Epstein knew Bill Gates. Epstein knew Reid Hoffman. Epstein knew all these high-level people, in addition to Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton, and was fascinated by academia. So it was mutually beneficial. Epstein would go up to Harvard, and I'm sure if you Google it, you see many pictures of Epstein wearing the crimson Harvard sweater, a lot of them with Dershowitz. People assumed he went to Harvard. No, he didn't. People assumed he went to MIT because he spent a lot of time at the Media Lab in Cambridge. No, he didn't. He was a college dropout. But he liked the association because he was associating with the two most famous intellectual institutions in the world. So
I want to ask you this because this is where I want to make it, Jason. I want to make this very obvious for everybody out there, but I want to ask the rhetorical so that that way we're on the same page. So Manny, if imagine you had a good friend, okay? Jason, he's a good friend. We know this guy.
Yes.
And this good friend, we'll call him Bill. All right, we'll call him Bill. Billy. We'll call him Billy. So you imagine we have a mutual acquaintance named Billy.
Oh, Billy.
And Billy, Manny, chooses to spend a lot of time with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedophile. What does that say about our good friend Billy?
He is not a good person. And he's clearly not hanging out with good people. I mean, guilt by association. Why would he be so interested in hanging out and intimately knowing someone who's a convicted sex offender? I mean, if I was in the face of common sense, why such high-level individuals would be so keen on spending a lot of time with Jeffrey Epstein, unless Jeffrey Epstein knew a lot about them and they wanted to stay on his good side. I mean, that's a strong possibility, right? Maybe he kept files on people. Maybe people told him things. Maybe he was aware of certain things, like about Bill and what Bill liked or what Bill did. And Jeffrey Epstein could have released this information, said alleged information, not saying it exists, saying it could exist or it could have existed. And he could have hurt Bill and hurt Bill's reputation. So maybe it was in Bill's best interest to continue the relationship with Mr. Epstein.
Now, in 1998, Mr. Epstein purchased the Little St. James Island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I prefer to call it Rape Island because that's what he did there. But this guy, from that point forward, I mean, in 1999, Epstein allegedly forced an underage Mar-a-Lago worker to have sex with Prince Andrew and the lawyer Alan Dershowitz. In 2002, he allegedly raped a New York City high school student at his New York mansion where Bill Gates has been. In 2002, I can go on and on. So his record was known for a long time, okay? But Bill Gates, let me read this to you. This is from the New York Times. Bill Gates, folks, you say, well, what does Bill Gates have to do with this? Bill Gates, in 2013, flew on Mr. Epstein's Gulfstream plane from the Teterboro Airport in New Jersey to Palm Beach, Florida, according to the flight manifest. Okay, 2014, Bill Gates donates $2 million to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Media Lab. University officials described the gift in internal emails as having been directed by Epstein. As late as 2017, Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation officials maintained 2 close contacts with Epstein until late 2017. So this is not old news, folks. This is now. So question number 3 for you, Mr. Manny, and Jason, I want to get your take on this. Jason, if our mutual friend Billy
Oh, Billy.
is hanging out with a pedophile and donating money to his causes, would you want to trust him with recommendations for vaccines for your kids? Or would you even trust him to watch your kids?
I would not trust him with anything because he clearly lacks any moral compass or sense of common judgments. So, no, there's no way I would trust Billy with anything after.
Manny, would you trust Bill Gates with your vaccine recommendations for your kids?
If you compare his relationship with Epstein in terms of his lack of judgment, no.
Now, okay, the models. Bill Gates, Jason, he's been going off about the models. He's the one talking about the pandemic. It's going to be worse than the flu, the great flu, the Black Plague. It's going to be, it's the end of the world. It's going to be, he just keeps hyping it up.
Right.
He was a big fan of the original models created by nefarious Neil Ferguson from the Abdul Latif Jameel Institute.
Who is also a sexual deviant, so there's kind of like a trend who he hangs out with.
Whoa, so Bill Gates, stop talking about the facts. So Bill Gates, though, should America trust him? I mean, Bill Gates is on CBS. He's given a graduation talk to every high school student.
Yep.
Manny, should we be turning to Bill Gates in our time of need and saying, teach us what to do? Should we do that?
Bill Gates is not the authority on COVID, is not the authority on vaccinations. I mean, it's great that he has a lot of money and he's given a lot of money away through the Gates Foundation, but we need to listen to doctors, and we need to be careful what doctors we listen to. Unfortunately, Bill Gates is not a doctor, and maybe he could go back to medical school. I know he's a smart guy. I know he dropped out of Harvard, but up until that time, I don't really think he should be an authority figure on COVID and vaccines.
Jason, we continue bringing up on each and every show that you are not white.
True.
I want to get that out there because once we do, it gives you a permission now.
Yeah, and then my
to
race
say what
jokes
I want to
don't make
say,
people as uncomfortable.
But I can't say. Yeah, your racial jokes are less uncomfortable. So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. I want to get Manny's take on this.
Yeah.
Are you a big fan of the George Soros funded Black Lives Matters? Are you a big fan of tearing down statues? Are you into it? What do you think? How would you describe Black Lives Matters?
Look, I understand that people want to protest and they want to have peaceful protests. I get that, and I understand the anger and the frustration. What I don't understand is that we are calling the whole matter peaceful with regard to a peaceful protest where there's looting and there's violence. And I'm not saying everyone who's protesting is committing acts of violence or looting. What I'm saying is if people want to be treated seriously and respected seriously, then you have to act that way. I think right now there's too much going on that clearly seems coordinated from New York all the way across the United States to Seattle, where the same modus operandi are in effect. There's bricks, there's fireworks. We have something similar to Chaz Chop in New York, where we had Occupy Wall Street, where these individuals essentially forced the New York City government to defund the police. So what they did was they reallocated $1 billion of $6 billion of funding to I'm not quite sure what, but they would not stop their protest, their Occupy City Hall movement unless the monies were moved. The monies were moved or they're in the process of being moved. They're still protesting. So I'm not quite sure what the purpose of this is, and I'm not quite sure why there's so much horrible violence and toppling statues. Again, I understand that people want to be heard. I understand that maybe some statues should come down or be considering coming down, but we need to go through a formal process to do that, have hearings, and the way statutes are put up, statues could come down. If the people vote, if there's a referendum, whatever, a ballot initiative, a hearing, whatever. But we can't have mob rule. I mean, that should not be allowed in this country, and unfortunately, it is right now.
Now, Manny, I want to get your take on this because right now I feel good about what's happening today, Jason. I'm encouraged.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why. There's two big plagues that are coming after our country right now. Two plagues. Plague number one, the coronavirus, COVID-19, the Kung flu, all these things. Okay, COVID-19, we now know, and maybe this is news to you, Manny, and feel free to argue with me or feel free to tell me if you don't agree or not, but there is a doctor who's highly respected based in Texas, who used to be an advisor to the Governor Perry of Texas. And he has been treating patients since March with a treatment program, a treatment protocol. And so far, everyone he's treated has not died. His name is Dr. Richard Bartlett. Have you covered him yet on your show?
I'm not.
Have you heard of his name so far?
Yes.
Okay. Have you looked into it? What's your initial? I mean, because he's got great credentials. Doesn't have a history of being crazy. What are your thoughts so far on the initial information being put out by Dr. Richard Bartlett?
I think it's encouraging. I think anything that we could do to treat COVID and treat it effectively, including hydroxychloroquine and Z-Pak and whatever cocktail that these doctors come up with, should be really described by the media, discussed by the media, and instead of politicized. So I know another doctor, Dr. David Zamati, who's a friend of mine, and he did my show. He has his own show. He's a contributor on Newsmax. He's been out there. He used to be a contributor on Fox. He's a big proponent of hydroxychloroquine. And he explained to me the properties, that the anti-inflammatory properties. So you take hydroxychloroquine like Trump took it as a preventative measure if you feel like it's the onset potentially of COVID, because it reduces the inflammation. And when you have these respiratory issues, that's really what they are. It's inflammation. So look, I'm open to anything that's positive and encouraging, and we all should be. But obviously our media keeps shooting us down, and our media just wants to report gloom and doom. My take on this right now is, if you look at the areas that were doing well, Florida and Texas, for example, right? Now they have the highest incidence of corona, of COVID, right? It's amazing because they've reopened their economies up.
Things are going well.
In a V-shaped recovery.
I live in these states.
V-shaped recovery. So what do we need to do? Slow it down, shut them down again, and that's what they're doing.
But by the way, if you test more people, you're going to find more cases, and the more people you find with cases that aren't dead is a good thing, which means it's less dangerous. So, but we have a treatment that's been shown to work. We have a treatment. Everyone should feel good about this. Everybody, do not believe me. Look up this guy. Think that I'm crazy. That's fine, but look it up, folks. Look it up. Look up the guy's name on YouTube right now before they delete it. Look up Dr. Richard Bartlett on YouTube. Watch his interview on ACWT Interview. This guy's been a correspondent with CBS for over 20 years as a special expert in the medical community. He's been serving patients for 20-something years. A great American. He's an advisor to he was an advisor to the governor of Texas, Dr. Richard Bartlett. And the second thing, we have a cure for the fear. Here it is. Stop listening to Fauci and Gates. Those two have been working together forever. And Bill Gates, I'm telling you, I don't know anybody in my lifetime. I don't know missionaries that do this. I don't know anybody who's a missionary with the best of intentions that hangs out on a one-on-one basis with a convicted, multiple-time pedophile. Stop listening to Gates and Fauci. Manny, obviously, I've just unloaded some bullets on this, but I want to get your final word on this. What is the action item that you would encourage all of our listeners to take? Do you have a website you want them to check out? Do you have a book? What can we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is mannyalicandro.com. I'm a contributor on New Right Network. Check that platform out. And the Epstein book is forthcoming. I'm a little behind. My publisher's upset at me. But that book should be out in the next 4 to 6 weeks, about Epstein's relationships with the universities and what they did, the universities and Epstein, to cover that up. And I think that, these woke universities should be outed. We should expose kind of the fact that they covered this up for so many years because they were so greedy and wanted to take the almighty dollar. Also, I want people to kind of really focus on how to get back to work. I mean, I think it's kind of crazy. A lot of these states have these requirements to wear masks, and they're not even let me be clear. I'm saying masks in air quotes. They require a face covering. It's like if I bought like a bandana for like 99 cents in Dollar Tree or something and put it over my face, how is that preventing me from spreading COVID if I had it? It's total idiocy. Like, how could that prevent me spreading the disease if I coughed or if I sneezed? I get a real mask, a medical mask, but they're not requiring people to wear medical masks. They're requiring people to wear a face covering. So if this was really serious and if it was that contagious, don't you think we'd be required to wear something much more serious from a medical profession that was an approved device to prevent the spread of disease? A face covering? Give me a break.
I know many people now, folks, I say more than one, more than two, more than three, now more than four people that have had COVID-19 that aren't dead. 3 of them didn't even feel bad. Now, I know people like secondhand where I know somebody and then it's their best friend that got it, or one of my clients, like their wife got it, or one of my clients, their husband got it. And they haven't told me directly they didn't feel bad. Their spouse said, yeah, they didn't even feel bad. Like they felt kind of like sick for like a day or two.
Yeah.
I know multiple people who've actually taken hydroxychloroquine and have been fine. So we have a cure. We have a treatment for COVID-19. It's available. Check it out right now, folks. We look it up, do your research, and we now also have a cure for the fear. But we need to be tuning in to programs like Manny's show, and we need to share the truth everywhere we can. Get it in the air everywhere. Manny, I appreciate you so much for being on today's show.
Thanks so much for having me on. This was fantastic. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right, brother. You have a great day. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
Dad, can I come in?
Sure. Come on in. How's it going?
Well, what are you working on?
I'm handwriting the checks to the employees. I like to do this myself. It's something I take pride in.
Aren't there companies like Paychecks that'll do that for you?
Yes, but I like to write the checks myself. I like to...
Shh, Dad.
What?
Silence your mind and listen to the voice of a weird man. And that weird man is you.
Billy, someday when you get to be my age, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
No, I will not.
Billy, when you get to be my age, payroll processing will be the highlight of your life.
You're sick.
Oh, direct deposits, and state taxes and federal taxes and Medicare. All the deductions are so exciting, Billy. I might do it wrong. I might miss some critical deductions, and I need that kind of adrenaline rush in my life. Billy, I just need a purpose.
Dad, I know you love doing paycheck payroll processing, but I know a dude who works up at QuickBooks that Clay uses who will just do it all for you.
Give me his number now. Give me the digits, Billy.
Dad, calm down. I thought you liked doing the paychecks.
No. Don't put words in my mouth, Billy.
You said it.
I just want the number. Just give me the phone number and I'll call the phone number.
You're so desperate.
I don't really want to call the number, but just give me the phone number.
You're begging.
Pretty close to now.
Dad, bruh, I will get you the number sometime this week. Calm down.
Billy.
What?
You listen here. If you don't give me the phone number right now, you're grounded forever.
I'm 27, Dad, bruh.
That's true.
You can't cut off my allowance
Well,
and ground me in the same week.
I can't.
Calm down.
Give me the number.
Dad.
Come on. Billy.
You said you didn't want it.
Billy, give me the number.
You said you didn't want it.
Give me the number.
Just admit it. Just say you want it.
No.
You do not want to do the payroll. Just admit it.
No, I will never.
Admit it.
Okay, fine. I don't want to do the payroll, though. Give me the number.
It's in my phone.
Give it to me now.
I'm looking.
I want my time freedom back. I want someone else to process the payroll for me. Please, give me the number.
I will give you the phone number, but you will restore my allowance, and henceforth, you will refer to me as the Golden Baby.
Fine. Golden Baby, what's the number for paychecks? So that
Go on.
I can pay someone to handle the paycheck processing and
I'm finding it now.
deposit payments and payroll taxes and quarterly taxes.
Okay.
Annual taxes and W-2s. What's the number? Who should I call?
Well, the number you're going to call is call Jason Rush.
Jason Rush.
With paychecks, and his phone number is 918
918
809
809
2539.
2539.
918
918
809
809
2539.
39.
Yes.
Billy, that number's an Oklahoma area code. I'm not located in Oklahoma. What's the number for me?
Calm down. He works in every state. Just give him a call or send him a text. His number's 918
918
809
okay.
2539.
39.
Again, it's 918 809 2539.
Billy, I appreciate you for
Okay.
giving me the number. I want you to know I've been a poor father, and I've spent probably 8 hours a week for the last 52 weeks per year.
That's just math.
400 hours a week plus, neglecting you to do these paychecks. And now
That's true, but don't feel bad about it.
I want to tell you I'm sorry. I've wasted my time processing payroll when I could have been hanging out with you. But
No problem, Dad. Just, hire paychecks.
perhaps you can forgive me, Billy.
I forgive you, Dad, but, it's like, maybe you should just call paychecks and delegate, so someone else can spend time processing paychecks while you and I could do parachuting out of a plane.
No, Billy.
Together, father and son, taking over the world.
Billy, we're not ever going to skydive together, but I'll hire paychecks and get my time back. I appreciate the referral.
Oh, Billy,